I knew the end was coming the moment Evelyn Carter stepped into my server room. She didn't belong there. You could tell by the way she paused at the doorway, like the hum of the machines offended her. Her blazer looked expensive, the kind that costs more than most people's rent. She smelled like premium coffee and confidence she hadn't earned yet. She glanced around my world, my sanctuary, the place that kept an entire logistics empire alive, and frowned. "Wow," she said slowly, tapping her heel against the raised floor. "This looks old." I didn't react, didn't sigh, didn't roll my eyes. I'd been doing this too long for theatrics. I took a sip of the burnt coffee in my hand. It tasted like disappointment and bad decisions. "Old doesn't mean broken," I said calmly. "This room processes tens of thousands of orders every single day. It feeds families. It pays mortgages. It doesn't need to be trendy. It needs power and cooling." She smiled, that polished MBA smile. The one people learn right after the class on firing loyal employees using words like innovation. "That mindset," she said, "is exactly what we're moving away from, Marcus." My name is Marcus Hale. I'm 56 years old, and I've been the lead systems engineer at Northline Freight for 3 decades. Before that, I spent years in military communications, where I learned one simple truth. When systems fail, people suffer. Maybe not bullets and blood here, but missed paychecks, grounded trucks, empty shelves, and none of that mattered to Evelyn. "We're building something faster," she continued. "More agile, more cloud-focused." I nodded slowly. The kid could barely connect to guest Wi-Fi without help, and now she wanted to rebuild the nervous system of a billion-dollar company. Her grandfather, Arthur Carter, understood things. He built this company with one truck and debt he couldn't sleep through. He respected results, not buzzwords. When ransomware nearly destroyed us years ago, while consultants panicked, I locked the doors, isolated the network, and rebuilt everything from backups I'd stored myself. Arthur poured me a drink afterward, looked me in the eye, and said, "Make sure this never happens again." That's when we built it, the failsafe, the thing nobody else knew about. A system tied into everything. Warehouses, billing, cameras, access controls, even the coffee machines. And at the center of it all, me. My account checked in regularly. If it ever stopped, the system assumed the worst, not an error, a breach. And when that happened, everything shut down. Arthur had a stroke months ago, and while he recovered quietly, the board handed the keys to Evelyn. She didn't read documentation, didn't ask questions. She dismantled experience and replaced it with confidence. She fired supervisors who knew every driver by name, hired consultants who spoke in circles, and every time she looked at me, I saw it. I was the problem. Then came the meetings, the emails where I was copied but ignored, the new junior admin asking for passwords he didn't understand. And then, HR showed up at my desk, not the friendly one, the other kind. "Marcus," she said softly, "Evelyn would like to see you." I felt it immediately. That feeling you get when an engine starts making a sound it shouldn't. The conference room felt like a courtroom. Evelyn sat at the head of the table, the junior admin beside her, pale, sweating. "We're restructuring," she said. "We need fresh energy." Translation: I was done. Termination. Effective immediately. Hand over credentials. Sign papers. Walk away. I tried to warn her, tried to explain. She waved it off. "You're not indispensable," she said coldly. "You're obsolete." So I complied. I transferred control. And then she did the one thing I told her not to do. She disabled my account. She didn't know what that meant. I walked out calmly, got in my truck, drove home, and waited, because the system checks loyalty on a schedule, and that countdown had already begun. I refreshed the company website. At first, everything looked fine, then slower, then error. Across the city, scanners went dark. Belts stopped moving. Phones went silent. The heartbeat had stopped. At my phone rang. IT was one of the warehouse leads. "Marcus, nothing works." Everything says lockdown. What did you do? I closed my eyes. Nothing, I said quietly. They did. And somewhere, in a glass building full of people who thought they knew better, panic was just beginning. Panic was just beginning. Inside that glass building, the first thing people noticed wasn't alarms or flashing screens. It was silence. The phone stopped ringing mid-call. Keyboards went quiet. Printers froze halfway through a page. Paper hanging out like a white flag. At first, people did what people always do. They refreshed. They clicked again. They muttered about slow internet. Then someone in accounting stood up and said, "Does anyone else's screen say access denied?" That's when the noise started. Evelyn's office door flew open so hard it smacked the wall. She stormed out, heels snapping against the floor, phone pressed to her ear. "No, that's impossible," she snapped. "Yes, I'm sure. Try again." She ended the call and turned toward the bullpen. "Where's IT?" she barked at. A dozen faces looked back at her. Blank. Nervous. Waiting. Someone finally said it. Marcus handled most of this. Her jaw tightened. "Get the new admin." Now, down in the server room, Ethan Brooks sat hunched over a keyboard, sweat soaking through his shirt. He was typing fast, too fast, the way people do when they don't really know what they're doing. Commands failed. Errors stacked up. Access rejected. His screen filled with red text. Authentication failed. Again. And again. "This doesn't make sense," he whispered. "I have full admin." He tried restarting his service. Nothing. He tried another. Worse. The system wasn't broken. IT was refusing him. Above him, in the warehouse north of the city, forklifts sat idle. Conveyor belts stood frozen. Packages stranded mid-journey. A veteran floor supervisor named Ray Coleman stared at his scanner. He scanned a pallet. Nothing. He scanned again. The screen flashed red. System lockdown initiated. "Contact primary administrator." Ray frowned and grabbed his radio. "Control, this is Ray. My scanner just locked up." A pause. Then another voice crackled in. "Mine too." Another. "And mine." Within seconds, the channel filled with overlapping voices. Confused. Frustrated. Worried. Ray had worked there nearly 20 years. He'd lived through storms, strikes, and software glitches. This felt different. This felt intentional. Back at headquarters, Evelyn burst into the server room. "Fix it," she said sharply. Ethan swallowed. "I'm trying. It's like the system doesn't recognize me. It's rejecting everything." "That's not possible," she snapped. "You have full access." He turned the screen toward her. Lines of error messages scrolled endlessly. "It's acting like there's a higher authority, and it's gone." Her phone buzzed again. Then again. Then again. She ignored it. Down the hall, the CFO, Daniel Price, was already on his feet, jacket half on, eyes wide. "Our payment gateway just went dark," he said. "Cards are being declined." Evelyn froze. "That's temporary." Daniel shook his head slowly. "It's not. Orders are stacking up. We're bleeding money every minute this stays down." She looked back at Ethan. "Call Marcus." I don't have his number." Her face flushed. "HR does." "Get it." Miles away, I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, beer untouched now. I watched the public status dashboard. Green turned yellow. Yellow turned red. One system after another dropped out. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I felt heavy because I knew who would suffer first. And it wasn't the executives. My phone rang. "Ray." I answered. "Marcus," he said quietly. "Everything's dead. Scanners, belts, even the clocks. What's going on?" I leaned back in my chair. "I don't work there anymore, Ray." Silence. "You're kidding." "I wish I was." Another pause. Then, "So we're screwed." I closed my eyes. "Yeah," I said softly. "For now." Across the city, Evelyn finally got through. My phone buzzed again. Her name lit up the screen. I let it ring. I in the boardroom. Daniel's voice rose. "Bank's close at the end of the day," he said. If we don't transmit reconciliation, we breach our credit line. Evelyn turned pale. Get him on the phone. Minutes passed. Then Daniel's phone rang. He stepped away, listened, then looked straight at her. It's Marcus. He put the call on speaker. Hello, Daniel, I said calmly. How's the system? There was a pause, longer than comfortable. We need to talk. I took a breath. We are talking. You know what's happening, he said carefully. Yes, I replied. And so do you. Evelyn stepped forward. This is sabotage, she said. You're doing this on purpose. I didn't raise my voice. No, I said evenly. I warned you. You chose not to listen. Daniel rubbed his forehead. What will it take to stop this? There it was, the right question. I'm not coming back as an employee, I said. That bridge is gone. Silence. Then what? Daniel asked. I looked at the dashboard again. More red. A contract, I said. Consulting. Full authority. No interference. Evelyn shook her head violently. You can't be serious. Daniel held up a hand, eyes locked on the screen. How much? I named the number. Evelyn gasped. Daniel didn't. He did the math in his head. He knew what every minute cost. Give us a moment, he said. The line went quiet. I stared at my reflection in the dark laptop screen. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about control and consequences. The phone rang again. Daniel came back on the line. We agree. I nodded once, even though he couldn't see it. One more thing, I said. Evelyn inhaled sharply. The termination gets reversed. Publicly. In writing. That's not, she started. It's non-negotiable, I said calmly. Another pause. Then Daniel exhaled. Done. I stood up and grabbed my keys. I'm on my way, I said. As I stepped outside, the sky was darkening. The city humming, unaware of how close a massive machine had come to staying broken. And behind me, the countdown hadn't stopped yet. The countdown hadn't stopped yet. That was the thought sitting in my chest as I pulled into the parking lot. The building looked the same from the outside. Glass, steel, confidence. Inside, I knew it was chaos. I stepped through the front doors and felt it immediately. The air was wrong. Too quiet. Too still. Ringing phones. No keyboards clacking. No printers whining in protest. Just people standing around, whispering, staring at screens that refused to listen. Someone saw me and froze. Then another. The reaction spread like a ripple across a pond. Marcus is here. A path opened without anyone saying a word. Not because I demanded it, because they needed it. Evelyn stood near the elevator, arms crossed tight across her chest. Her blazer was wrinkled now. Her confidence cracked. She didn't speak. Didn't have to. I walked past her without slowing. The server room door was closed. I heard frantic typing on the other side. A keyboard being attacked like it owed someone money. Ethan's voice cracked when he saw me. Oh, thank God. The room smelled like overheated metal and fear. Screens glowed red and amber. Warnings stacked on top of warnings. I tried everything, he said quickly. Credentials don't work. Overrides fail. The system won't accept. I raised a hand. Stop. He did. Immediately. I set my bag down and took a breath. The hum of the servers was uneven now. Like a heart-skipping beats. On the main console, one message pulsed quietly. Administrative override required. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small device. Old. Simple. Reliable. The same one Evelyn had laughed at months earlier. I pressed my thumb against the scanner. A soft beep. The screen paused. Then changed. Identity confirmed. The room exhaled with me. I typed slowly. Deliberately. Not rushing. Because this part mattered. Point one wrong move, and the damage would last for days. Lines of code flowed. Systems reintroduced themselves to each other. Trust rebuilt. Handshake by handshake. Red faded to amber. Amber softened to green. Behind me, someone whispered, "It's working." I didn't turn around. I kept typing. I in the warehouse across the city. Scanners chirped back to life. Belts began to move. Motors hummed like they'd been holding their breath. Phones rang all at once. The noise returned. Not panic this time. Relief. I leaned back slightly and cracked my neck. We're stable, I said. For now. Ethan looked like he might cry. Outside the server room, executives gathered. Daniel was there. So was Evelyn. She stepped forward. You enjoyed this, she said quietly. I finally looked at her. No, I said. I warned you. She flinched. You embarrassed me. I shrugged. You fired me. Silence stretched between us. Daniel cleared his throat. The bank's confirmed, he said. Accounts are secure. I nodded. Good. Then I added. But listen carefully. This only holds if nothing else changes. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means, I said evenly, you don't touch the system again without me. She opened her mouth. Daniel spoke first. He reports to the board now. That landed harder than any insult. Evelyn's face went pale. I packed up my device. This isn't revenge, I said. It's accountability. She stared at the floor. Later that night, when most of the building had emptied, I sat alone at the console. The system was calm now. Balanced. Alive. But something still bothered me. I opened a diagnostics panel I hadn't checked in years. Hidden layers. Deep safeguards. And that's when I saw it. A secondary flag. Not triggered. Not yet. A warning Arthur and I had built in quietly. Just in case leadership ever tried this again. I leaned back slowly. Because if that flag ever flipped this time, there wouldn't be a reset. I closed the panel and shut down my screen. Outside, the night air felt cool. Honest. Behind me, the building glowed again. But I knew something now that they didn't. The system wasn't just protecting the company anymore. IT was watching them. The system was watching them. I felt it the next morning, the moment I logged in from home. Not alarms. Not errors. Just tension, like a room full of people pretending everything was fine. The overnight reports came in clean. Warehouses running. Orders flowing. Drivers back on schedule. On paper, Northline Freight had survived. In reality, something had changed. When I arrived at the office later that morning, people didn't just nod anymore. They stopped me, thanked me, quietly, respectfully, because they understood now. This wasn't about ego. It was about survival. Evelyn avoided me, not dramatically, not openly. She just didn't look my way. Her role had been reduced to presentations and planning decks. No access, no authority, no buttons she could press without consequences. Daniel met me near the boardroom. They want a full briefing, he said. All of it. I nodded. Inside the room, faces I hadn't seen in years stared back at me. Board members, investors, people who'd only ever seen the company as numbers. I didn't waste their time. I explained the system. The safeguards. The reason they existed. I didn't dramatize it. I didn't threaten. I told the truth. When experience is removed without understanding, I said calmly, systems don't fail loudly. They fail completely. A silence followed. Then one of them spoke. What happens if this protocol activates again? I folded my hands. Next time, I said, it won't come back so easily. That landed. Hard. A vote was called. Unanimous. Operational authority stayed with me. Permanently. Evelyn's future was decided without her in the room. Later that week, Arthur came back, slower, weaker, still sharp. He found me in the server room, smiled. Told you, he said softly. They'd learn. I smiled back. They always do, I said. Eventually, he put a hand on my shoulder. You kept your word. So did you. By the end of the month, things felt steady again. Ethan settled into a role he could actually grow into. Warehouse teams trusted the systems again. Drivers stopped calling in panic. Even Evelyn changed. Not overnight. Not completely. But she listened now. And listening turned out to be the beginning of wisdom. One evening, long after most people had gone home, I stood alone in the server room. The hum was steady. Comforting. I pulled up that hidden panel one last time. The secondary flag remained dormant, waiting. I left it that way because systems like this aren't meant to punish. They're meant to protect. I shut down my terminal and turned off the lights. As I walked out, I realized something important. They never needed a disruptor. They never needed a rocket ship. They needed someone who knew how to keep the engine running. Even when everyone else thought it was replaceable. Outside, the city moved on. Trucks rolled, orders shipped, and for the first time in a long while, I wasn't invisible anymore.